Hey, it's Soleil, and this is episode 242 of the Orange Pill Investor, and I had to jump on here because MSTR is popping, and so I need to see if there is anything I need to do in this account. And I think I caught caught the okey doke a little bit because I was looking at this and I was like, all right, well, maybe we got October in September because September came in, what are we at, like 132? And then we finished at like 170, something like that. Yeah. And, you know, it's got to pump at some point, but I this candle caught me off guard. Now it is a welcome surprise because I did leave two of my covered calls excuse me, 200 shares uncovered last week. So I have 2,200 shares. And I went ahead and I already had 11 covered calls previously. And I decided to go ahead and do 7 covered calls last week, um, 7 additional, which, yeah, at the money. And then 2 more out to 45 days at the 230 strikes. So an additional 9, which brought me to 20 of the 2,200. So I did have unlimited upside on these 200 shares. And then, of course, the 10 long calls that I have at the 3-day strike in February and the 20 long calls that I have at the 380 strike out to December of 2025. And those are the only leaps I really have in this account. These 10 are short dated, so they are not leaps. And I sold like 70 of the 80 at around 5, between 5 and 7. So took anywhere between what, like 40% to, no, excuse me, $500 at the $200 profit on a basically $300 entry. So no, that's like a 60% profit on most of those. And now it looks like I can triple up. So I'm going to do a couple of things here. The whole point of leaving these uncovered was to wait for a spike like this so that I could sell covered calls at the most opportune time. So I'm going to go in here and sell a call. And it looks like I can get $1,000 at the 250 strike. So that's building in, let's see, 10% call away value would be another $19. So let's just say $20. And so that's $60 from 190 to 250. So that's 1020. That's like 30% call away value. And this is out to 46 days. And collecting $1,000. And if I'm gonna collect about a quarter of this every 2 weeks, then I should be able to collect about 250 a week. Worst case scenario, well, not necessarily worst case scenario, but worst best case scenario is it takes me 3 weeks to collect half of this, and that would still be $500 divided by 3, so 170. So in that case, that would be almost 1% a week and 30% call away value. So I was kind of tempted to just do one of these and let one of them appreciate even more if it goes up and cracks past 200. But I do still have these. Well, I do want to take advantage of some of these. So I'm going to go ahead and before I decide what to do on the other one, I'm going to close like 5 of these. I still don't have 100,000 in buying power on this margin account, and I want to get to 100,000 before November 3rd, which is when Tasty Trade is going to change their algorithm and reduce the amount of buying power that people have just before earnings. So this is saying earnings is on 11/6, and they will increase the margin requirement on 11/3 just to protect us from a bad earnings report. I don't necessarily like having my hand held, um, but it's their company and they can do whatever they want. It's not like it's the government forcing me to do business with these people. So it's not the end of the world. It was just a bit of a shock for me last earnings call when I had like 70 grand of buying power. Woke up the next day and had like 10, under 10. And I was a little bit paranoid of getting a margin call. That paranoia was probably a little bit overblown because even if MicroStrategy did have a bad earnings report, they would have simply just reverted to their previous margin requirements most likely. And so I probably really wasn't in any danger of a margin call. The fact that they increased their margin requirements and I didn't get a margin call before earnings was probably proof that I was managing my margin responsibly. So if they increased the margin requirement and I ended up with a margin call, then that would have been a clear indication that I was being way too irresponsibly long. But I'm just going to go ahead and book triple profits here. So my purchase price, I dollar costed average into these. I think I was buying these at like $500 a pop, which in option price it's $5. So this says $2.94, but that's really times 100, so that costs $294. So I was paying $500 a pop for these at first, and then as MicroStrategy started shitting the bed, I started dollar costing averaging into these, and I ended up with about 80 of them at a 284, 294 trade price. I can't tell without my glasses. And so selling another 5 of these and basically tripling that makes sense to me at this point. It gets me so close to the 100 grand that I want in buying power. And I'm still at like 6 figures of margin use. So when people say, oh, you're going to get sell the covered calls, you're going to get shares called away. I have no business having 2,000 shares of MicroStrategy. My portfolio value does not support this many shares and all of these long calls. I am basically borrowing money from Tasty Trade in order to make these purchases. So between now and the end of 2025, my goal is to not have any margin whatsoever. And regardless of whether the 4-year cycles continue or not, I will be in a position where I am extremely long MicroStrategy forever, and I will not have any margin risk. So if MicroStrategy draws down 25%, 50%, 75%, it just won't matter because I won't have any margin risk. And then in 2027, if the cycle does continue, then I will go irresponsibly long squared again and load up on a bunch of margin and get back on the roller coaster. So I don't feel the need to just peel off all of these. And my sweet spot, I said, was going to be to keep at least 50 uncovered delta per 100 of covered. And right now I have 2,000 2,000 shares covered, so that's 2,000 delta, and I've got almost 1,000 uncovered delta here, just in my I'm gonna call that, yeah, that's almost 1,000. It's like 970. but I also have 200 shares. So that brings my grand total uncovered to 1,100. So I can sell another covered call. So I'm going to go out to 45 days, and I'm going to sell that covered call that I was talking about. And I'm going to go way the hell up here to 250. Collect $1,000. Boom. That gets me over the 100 grand of buying power that I wanted. Now that can fluctuate. If MicroStrategy shits the bed again, then this is going to collapse. And if MicroStrategy continues to pump, then I have, let's see, I've got 7 and 3 is 10, and 8 is 18, and 2 is 20, and 1 is 21. So I have 21 covered calls. I have 100 lonely ass shares uncovered. And then I've got this 970 uncovered delta. Now, the beauty of having long calls as opposed to uncovered shares is that this delta will grow as MicroStrategy grows. So I've purchased 970 delta at these prices, but I will basically get some free delta if MicroStrategy pumps, because the delta on these is going to increase based on the other option Greeks. I think it's gamma. Maybe I should review my own Greeks video for that. But if MicroStrategy pumps to 200, 250, whatever, then the delta on these long calls will also increase, and their value will not appreciate in a linear fashion. It's going to increase by some multiple. So right now, this position will grow. Let's see. Let's just say this is 20 delta per contract. And as the price of MicroStrategy increases, that might go to 30, 40, 50. And but the reverse is also true. So if MicroStrategy retraces back to 150, then this might only be worth like 45 delta. So it's great when number go up, but these long calls are definitely risky as fuck, and they absolutely collapse when number go down. So I'm happy with this. I have 2,100 delta covered. That means I need to keep 1050 uncovered in order to kind of sit in that sweet spot that I was going for. And I have 865, basically 860 plus 100, so 960 plus the 100 puts me at 1060. So that's damn near perfect. But that's the optimistic part. This is going to be brutal though. When I have to roll these calls on Friday, if I have to pay $1,800 a pop for 7 of these, that's going to sting. That will eat into this buying power. I don't really have to do anything with these 170s, but by the time I do, they might, if the price of MicroStrategy is frickin' 200 by then I would have to pay 30 times 100. So yeah, $3,000 a pop for all 3 of these. I have a little bit more breathing room on these 200s. But again, the way that so it's got the little ITM flag here. And I've talked about this a few times. I'm just going to repeat myself again now. With 25 days to expiration on here, this does not really bother me. And the way that I determine whether I need to roll something or not is to calculate the extrinsic value, which is the amount that I can collect over time from theta decay. The way that you calculate the extrinsic value on an in-the-money option is to subtract the intrinsic value from the value of the option, and everything that's left over is extrinsic. So how do you figure out how much intrinsic value is in a option contract? You subtract the strike price from the current price. Because if I were to exercise this 170 call right now, I would pay 17 grand for 100 shares, and then I could immediately sell them for 18.8. So I would profit what, $1,880? Yeah. And since that's the case, the contracts are worth 28. So if I take that 28 minus the 1800 that's intrinsic to the contract, that leaves $1,000 left over in extrinsic value. So if I hold on to these for another 25 days, that $1,000 of extrinsic value will drain into my account, and I will not have to pay that $1,000 to roll it. So now the person on the other end of this contract can exercise this at any time. So when that $1,000 starts shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, maybe the Wednesday, Thursday before expiration, they might be like, you know what, I'm just going to exercise now. And for somebody who didn't want to lose their shares, that might be the end of the world. But for me, I'll probably have to peel off a couple of shares or some more long calls anyway. But let's just say that I just want to get a feel for what it would take to roll these out to 46 days. And if I rolled out to, basically at the money, I would still have to pay a little bit. And to build even like 10% call away value, I'm still going to have to pay a big chunk. So I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to sit on these, and MicroStrategy might crash back down to 170 over the next week or two. You never know. So because there's $1,000 worth of extrinsic value that I can collect if I do nothing and sit on my hands, then I do not feel any anxiety about these contracts, these covered calls being in the money. Same way with this one. So 188 minus 172, that's about 1,600. And these are 1,800. So there's about $200 worth of extrinsic value that I can collect. So I feel like if I roll these now, I'm paying that extra $200 for nothing, when I can just sit around and wait for 4 days for that $200 to drain out, and then that'll save me $1,400. All right, so that's my decision making on whether or when to roll these in the money covered calls, or whether to roll them or not. And if I want to, if I do need to free up some more buying power, then I'll just let them get called away, and that'll be fine. Probably won't let them all get called away. I may drop this down to like 2,000 shares, but I may also, if the price is pumping some more, I may peel off my last 5 long calls. These are in February, so these were never meant in my plan to exercise. It's not like I was expecting MicroStrategy to be 500 by February. I'll be fucking ecstatic if it is, but I bought these calls to sell them. I didn't buy them to exercise. These December 19th ones, on the other hand, I could easily see exercising some of them. I'd probably have to sell 1 or 2 just to be able to afford to exercise the others, especially since I'm trying to eliminate all my margin in 2025. But we shall see. So I'm in no rush to liquidate these and sell them at a profit, even though I could almost double up on these. That's not what these are for. These calls are for 10xing. These shorter dated long calls, to me, that's for 2xing, 3xing, and to protect my shares from sharp rallies. All right, I think that's everything that I wanted to go over today. TLDR version, I sold some of these for profit, and I went ahead and added another covered call while MicroStrategy was giving us a nice green candle. So I should be selling this covered call at the optimum time instead of when I sold these covered calls when MicroStrategy was at 170. So I am liking this one being a little bit more strategic. And if MicroStrategy pumps to 200 or 210, 220, I will probably sell one more covered call. And by then, the delta on these will probably have appreciated enough that I will still be in my 50 uncovered delta per 100 covered delta at that time. And who knows, a couple of these may get called away by then. So I may have to do the math all over again. So I wasn't planning on doing anything with these out of the money. Well, they were out of the money when I sold them. Covered calls until tomorrow so that I could get 45 days to expiration exactly. But with the market moving today, I just got excited, and 46 days is fine. It's not like 45 days to expiration. One day is gonna be like, oh my god, it changes the rate of theta decay or something by anything worth mentioning. So that should do it, I think, for today. Well, let's just, while I'm in here, let's just check the 5K account. Okay, that is nice. So actually, yeah, let's do this as well. Let's go ahead and sell one more. I think I sold 3 of these before. All right. That might reduce my margin usage in this account too, which would be awesome. I've got a 3 grand margin buffer, and it doesn't look like, yeah, it doesn't look like I'm using any margin in this account. So that's awesome. I like that. So I think no matter what all these stocks do, I should be good to go in this account as well. All right, let me just go back and check. Nothing I would need to do in the IRA account. But this joint account, I think I have. Didn't I sell a put? Yeah. I sold a put for 11, and I have it set to close if I can collect 50% of that. So that is pretty close. I'm waiting to only pay $550 for that, and it's currently worth $665. So MicroStrategy needs to pump a little bit more in order for this to fire. Let's see what this one. Yeah, CLSK is not really doing much of anything. And what covered call do I have on this? Got the 210. So that one's working out pretty well. This April long call, trade price 11. It's worth about 4,000. I'm not in too much of a rush to sell this one either, even though I could triple, almost quadruple that. It's still over 180 days, and I don't really get too nervous until it's under 90 days. That's when I feel the advantage kind of starts to switch from the buyer to the seller. And then of course I have one leaps here that's doing well. All right, yeah, nothing to do in this account. All right, hopefully we see Godzilla candles, and everybody can retire early. All right, be good, Joe.